Hey, this is Sensei John from Integrity Martial Arts. I'm going to talk to you about what is a reality-based martial art, or a reality martial art for short. So if you think about martial arts in the categories I talked about before, there may be traditional, preserve a tradition, or sport martial art to optimize towards sport like wrestling or boxing might be, or performance martial art that's designed to be watched, right? And there's nothing wrong with any of those things. I love at least one martial art in each of those categories. They're really fun, and there's lessons to be learned about personal development and self-defense from many different styles, from all these different categories. But the ones that are really optimized towards self-defense are reality martial arts. So what makes a reality martial art as opposed to a traditional martial art? So one is that a really truly progressive reality martial art, like breakthrough martial arts, takes a look at evidence. So let's think about how people designed their styles in the past, right? So imagine you have two kids fighting, like 18, 19 years old, and they go in the ring and they beat the crap out of each other. They meet in someone's backyard and beat the crap out of each other. Oh, that thing I did, that was really good. And that's an anecdote, right? Maybe it was really good for him in that situation, or maybe it wasn't so good, but it was the thing that he did and he wants to brag about it, right? But how do you really determine, oh, you know what, this combination is better, or that throw is better, or this is, well, you can kind of figure that out for sport, right? If the sport has really good statistics. But it's hard. But sport isn't self-defense, right? And would that work if you were fully adrenalized and scared? Would it work if you were on a rough terrain? Would it work if, all of a sudden someone slammed you up against a wall as opposed to on a flat mat? Would it work if you're on a stairwell? Boy, I don't think anybody knows the perfect answer to those questions, right? That self-defense is too chaotic. But here's what we can do, right? So we can take a look at what is simple and gross motor, because we know fine motor control falls apart under stress and under pressure. So a lot of the stuff I learned in some of the traditional martial arts I've studied, that people said were great self-defense, if we were both calm and in a controlled situation. But if you get your heartbeat up high enough and you lose that fine motor control, they really don't work, And they seem like they should, but they didn't, right? They don't. And you see lots of people now, the big advantage reality-based martial arts have that is unprecedented is that rather than talking to guys about, hey, you see that thing I did in the ring today, or oh, you saw the way I beat that guy up and at the bar, that kind of anecdotes, right? It's really not evidence. The plural of anecdote is not evidence, right? We have closed circuit footage of tons of crime because there's so many cameras out in the world now. That never happened in the thousands of years of martial arts history. We never got to watch actual non-consensual violence in a really systemic way. And now we can, because we have thousands and thousands of incidents of sudden, unexpected, non-consensual violence, the kind of things that as self-defense practitioners we should be thinking about, going down in real time and watching the details. Oh, he tried that, it didn't work out. You know what, he's trained to do this. That guy's a boxer. He's maybe a Golden Gloves fighter, but he did this. But that other stuff just didn't even happen at all, right? Oh, here's a guy. So we have all these different things that we can study and learn from in a true self-defense environment, and that really is a game changer, right? We can learn, hey, that works, and look, what do people who aren't even trained to do? What do people who aren't even trained do that's effective, right? So Joe, the guy, who's walking out of the gym, he gets into a fight, and what does he do that actually works? Because some of those guys are tough and effective, right? What are those gross motor skills? What happens when Joe, the tough guy, fights, Bill, the experienced fighter? What doesn't work? And we can look at those things in real crime situations, because let's face it, a lot of those guys are getting into fights. So that's what a reality-based martial arts is one that adjusts itself to the evidence about what truly works and what doesn't. And there's a lot of lessons to be learned, things that we always train for that are kind of like, oh boy, actually it turns out that's irrelevant. That never happens. One thing that we learned just this year, and was we always practice for defending if someone wanted to switch the hand, like if they had a gun and they were going to transfer it to another hand. Well, we watched hundreds of videos of people who are hands-on with a gun encounters. A lot of those on police cam footage and other crime footage. And nobody ever tried to switch hands. So it's something we'd practice for, and really just, it makes sense. And oh yeah, when I'm sparring, I'm always like, oh, you got my hand, I'm gonna go switch it over. But under pressure, that just doesn't ever happen, right? Or at least it didn't happen in the hundreds of incidents we could watch, which lets you know it's not something that's as much of a priority as we thought it was. So there's an example about a reality-based martial art. And what does this all lead to? It means that when you learn self-defense in a reality-based martial art, then you're going to learn how to defend yourself in a way that actually works, right? It's going to talk about the psychological aspect. It should talk about, weapons and the way that crime actually happens. Multiple attackers, different terrains, the psychological components, the pre-fight components. The meaning, like, before a fight happens, there's a lot of things you can do to defend yourself, right? I can position myself. I can use de-escalation. I can use choice language speech in order to try and de-escalate, or I can look at what available weapons are. I can analyze the exits. I can get help. So there's lots of options there, and people who are skilled self-defense practitioners learn, the psychological, the physical elements, the physiology, and by the time punches and kicks are thrown, they've already gone through 4 or 5 different processes to try and prevent violence, right? And so all of that is really encompassed in a reality martial art. And so that's why I'm proud, of Breakthrough Martial Arts, is because we do encompass all those things. And that's why we're teaching that style. And in the next video, I'll tell you, like, how did I get here? Because I didn't start out in a reality-based martial art. I started out in some other styles, which had different goals and priorities. Although they kind of talked about it like they were self-defense oriented, but in actuality, I found that what I'm doing now is much more so. So we'll talk about how I got here from there in the next video, in case you're interested.